On December 5th, 1952, an unusually thick fog descended over the city of London in the United Kingdom. The fog lasted for a full 5 days and completely paralysed the city's movement. Despite this, no panic occurred at the time, as fog was a common occurrence in London. And even if it appeared frightening, people this time saw it as merely a new development in the characteristic British weather. However, no one knew at the time that this fog would have a very dangerous long-term impact. London was, and still is, one of the most crowded cities in the world, with a large concentration of people and industries in one place. It always suffered from air pollution more than other cities in the United Kingdom. Even during the Victorian era, London's streets were known to be extremely foggy, to the extent that writers at the time called the fog pea soup due to its dense colour. Although there was a slight improvement in air quality entering the 20th century, by 1952, pollution was a very serious problem. Coal was the primary source of energy at the time, and factories and power plants that burned coal were spread throughout the city. Coal was also a very important fuel for homes. Due to the very cold winter of 1952, London residents used large amounts of coal to heat their homes. However, as the world was emerging from World War II, energy resources were very limited. So most households burned low-quality coal for heating, which resulted in heavy pollution. On December 5th, 1952, weather conditions helped trap pollution inside the city, as there was neither wind nor a low-pressure system. This caused the warm air rising from factory and home chimneys to descend back to street level. Within hours, the entire city was covered by a thick fog-li air that obscured all buildings, except for the tall ones that remained visible. Initially, the fog was severe and worsened each day. Factories were operating at full capacity, contributing daily pollution. For example, about 1,000 tons of smoke and number-missing tons of carbon dioxide were released into the air each day. While London residents were accustomed to fog, this fog was different. It was extremely dense, with near zero visibility, sometimes yellow or green in colour, and smelled like rotten eggs. Many people began wearing masks or covering their faces when going outside. However, most people were not concerned about air quality, but were more worried about visibility issues. Transportation in the city came to a complete halt. Planes could neither land nor take off, and flights were diverted to other airports. Buses became dangerous to operate because drivers could not see the roads, and there was no safe distance to avoid accidents. This made the London Underground the only public transport that people could use safely. As for private transportation, most roads were closed and crowded with accidents, and even open roads moved very slowly. The fog not only caused chaos in roads, transport, and travel, but also led to increased theft and crime. Thieves took advantage of this situation, as visibility was nearly zero, and the police could not move easily. Crime rates, robberies, and attacks increased significantly, with hundreds of reports of theft and robbery, and thieves easily escaped and disappeared into the fog. Additionally, almost all daily activities were halted. Sports matches were cancelled because spectators could not see anything, and even players could not see the ball. Theatrical performances were cancelled because the fog seeped through windows into the theatres, preventing audiences from watching plays or movies. Workers and employees could not reach their jobs, and schools were closed due to the fog. People who lived through this period described how terrifying and difficult it was. They tried to walk along the streets by touching walls or trees to avoid getting lost. Some walked in groups, holding hands to stay together. All transportation was completely disrupted. The police tried to help people using flashlights or torches, and some followed the electric spark lines of the trams to find their way if they could reach their destination at all. The fog was so dense that when people reached their destinations, their clothes were covered in soot or ash, and they coughed continuously. The fog was so thick that even carrying lamps or flashlights, people could not see anything. In an area of London called the Isle of Dogs, the fog was so dense that people could not see their own feet. Doctors were under extreme pressure at the time, but they also struggled to reach patients' homes due to the fog, and because the underground was the only available transport. Thousands of people queued at ticket windows in the stations after 5 days, while the city remained shrouded in fog. The weather then began to change, the fog lifted, and the city gradually returned to normal life. Streets reopened, and transportation services resumed. This was one of the strangest events London had ever witnessed, but the disaster was greater than a mere temporary stoppage. After the fog, doctors across hospitals in the capital noticed a significant and unusual increase in deaths and respiratory illnesses, especially among patients and the elderly. For ordinary healthy citizens, nothing seemed unusual after the fog. Most people believed it was just a passing bad weather event. Months passed before people began to notice the wave of deaths and respiratory illnesses caused by the dense fog. Even when they began to notice, it was very difficult to determine the extent of the disaster and its impact. Many of those affected did not die during the fog itself, but their lives were significantly affected afterward. For example, if someone died of a respiratory illness a year after the Great Fog, they were usually not counted among the victims. Nevertheless, the lowest estimates suggest that the fog caused at least 4,000 deaths. This disaster served as a wake-up call for people. Hundreds of those who experienced it said it changed their perspective on the environment. It also brought the issue of air quality onto the political agenda. In 1956, the Clean Air Act was issued, enforcing the use of less polluting fuels in residential areas. Limits were also set on the pollution factories were allowed to release into the air. Although the law itself was amended several times over the years, its basic principles remain in place today. Thanks to these measures, air quality in London improved significantly. Obvious pollutants with strong odours were greatly reduced, and the city became much cleaner and better compared to 70 years ago. However, despite this improvement, air pollution has not been completely resolved. According to some estimates, around 4,000 London residents die prematurely each year due to air pollution, a number very close to those who died during the Great Fog. The difference is that these deaths occur every year and have become very normal, attracting far less attention. The Great Fog was a dramatic and terrifying event for those who lived through it. But this drama paved the way for significant changes and important decisions, as politicians and decision makers could not ignore the air pollution problem when it was visible and smelled in the streets. And with that, we reach the end of our episode or today's video. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this video, to like it and share it from all your social media accounts. If this is your first time watching the channel and you are not yet subscribed, please subscribe and activate the notification bell so you receive videos as soon as they are released. I will see you in new videos and stories. Good night and take care.